This is Andrew Wicklund from Project Risk Consultants. We're going to walk through importing a file from Microsoft Project. So to start the import from Microsoft Project, you can either go to the Open menu under File, or I can go into Microsoft Project menu to Open Project. It doesn't matter which one you go to. I'm going to select the one Microsoft Project and then Open Project. The only difference between going to the Open menu and the Microsoft Project menu is it's going to pre-select this drop-down for me. So instead of selecting all files, it's going to select Microsoft Project files. So it's going to look for things with a .mp. So what I'm going to do, I've got a sample file from Primavera Risk. I can either double-click this, or I can select this and click the Open button. And that's going to start the import wizard. So I'll go ahead and click Open. And you get the import mappings. This is where all the data is going to happen. It's a fairly quick and easy process. So you've got your planning unit. 1 day is equal to how many hours? Generally, with any type of calendar issue or any problems that you have with an import, if you import by hours, it takes care of a lot of those issues that you may have. So I'm going to go ahead and import in hours. The next bit is the workspace template. There's a default MSP or Microsoft Project workspace. It is set up pretty well. There's generally not a reason to use a different workspace. However, if you've set up a custom workspace, you might do that off the bat too. So you might change that, and you'll hit the Select Workspace button. After import, check Show Import Log. I would go ahead and do this. I think it's a good habit to get into. In step 2 of this process, we're always going to look at the import log. The import log shows you things that change during import. So it's actually showing you how your data has changed and what Pertmaster couldn't read in that Microsoft Project did have. So it's a very important thing to look at that import log, whether you check mark that box or not. The next field is for elapsed duration. The following characters are used to identify the elapsed durations. You should probably type in E there. That's the default. So E days is what that's considered. So the next bit is the task tab. If you have risk data, like a minimum, a likely, maximum duration in Microsoft Project, you would check mark this box and then map that to the correct field. It can map to any one of the 10 duration fields. Sometimes these are populated for audits from DCMA or organizations like that. I don't have risk data in mind currently, so I'm not going to bring that in. However, that could automatically map it for you if you do. The risk tool is going to help you do minimum, likely, and maximum, so you don't need to bring those in. The next field I'm going to set to nothing. That's the duration distribution. The correlation as well, I'll set to nothing. If you have data in Microsoft Project, it's as simple as mapping them to those fields. The next section is for ID. Do you want to use the task ID from Microsoft Project or the unique task ID? In theory, the unique task ID in Microsoft Project should never change. So if you use a task ID and you remove tasks, it will renumber things for you because it's sequential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you remove 5, everything moves up a level. Whereas if you use the unique ID and you remove activities, the unique ID remains constant. If you're setting up a risk template based on unique ID, it's advisable that you should go ahead and use the unique ID, because if you're doing anything that involves the task IDs and those numbers change, your template may be invalid the next month. If you do sub-project files, you actually want to start the import from directly within Microsoft Project, where we'll go through that in just a moment. But you can prefix the task ID with the project name. So if it's sub-project 1 and sub-project 2, you could do the same thing. So since each one is going to have ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you were to do task IDs, you would want to prefix them with the project name. So we'll go ahead and use unique IDs. The probabilistic tab This is if you've tracked risk events directly in Microsoft Project. I'm going to set them to nothing because I'm going to load my risk data in Primavera Risk. So these are set to nothing and we'll move on. Not a problem at all. If you do have any risk data that's relative to risk events, so you've categorized the probability of something happening like a delay, you would just simply map it to one of the number fields here. So same with the probabilistic branch, and you would map to a text field. The next tab is resources and cost. You have options on basically what do you want to bring in. So do I want to bring in the resource calendars? I would check mark this box. I'm going to import all of the project resources. You can go ahead and import only the project resource cost, link to task durations. You've got, it's just step by step, read through the options. I'm going to import all. You can create a cost distribution if you want based on for the resource cost. You would check mark this, and those would be either in the cost or the number fields. I don't have that data in my Primavera or in my Microsoft project file. I'm going to uncheck it and it'll gray out those fields. The alternative cost distribution, once again, I don't have that data in there. Most of these fields, unless it's they've been preloaded for an audit or for DCMA to look at them, most of these fields would never exist. Really, the fields that are most commonly input, if ever, are these task durations, the duration 1, 2, and 3 for the minimum, the likely, and the maximum. The next section, the user-defined fields, this one is very critical. You have to bring in any user-defined fields that you're going to use upon import. So if you say have a user-defined field for discipline, and you're making a risk template based on our discipline because we track discipline productivity. If I forget to bring that in, so I can't decide, you know, where's my integration and test activities or things like that, I might have to redo the import. So any user-defined fields that you want, you need to bring in immediately. You just check mark them to the right. These will come in. If you want, it'll increase the duration of the import, but I can click this double arrow and it'll bring everything over. It's up to you. The key is if you think you may need it to create a template or for doing a filter or any other reason and you don't bring it in, you will have to redo the import. So we'll go ahead and bring these user-defined fields in. I'm going to check mark the box in the bottom left that says remember these settings, and then I'll click OK. I'll go ahead and save the file to my desktop, and the import is finished at that point. Now, if you do have a Microsoft project file with sub-projects, what you will want to do is import directly from Microsoft Project. So if you look at the Microsoft Project menu, there's an option at the bottom to add toolbars and views to Microsoft Project. This will add and change your global template. This is going to add a toolbar in, which allows you to start the process directly from within Microsoft Project. That way you open the master project file within MSP or Microsoft Project, and then you start the import from there, or else it's not going to get the import correct. So I clicked on add the template, and it says this is going to update your global template. Do you want to continue? Click yes to add that in. Now you'll notice I'm opening Microsoft Project, and you should see a toolbar that's Primavera Risk. You should also see a menu bar item where you've got Primavera Risk as well. It is important to go through this process that if I would always do the import from within Microsoft Project if possible, but if you've got sub-projects, you've got to do it within this menu. So I'm just going to type a couple things in here. We'll save this file to the desktop, project 1. and I've got an open in Primavera Risk Analysis under the menu bar as well. I'm going to click that. Once again, we've got the same thing that we had before. Nothing different, same options. We've just started it from within Microsoft Project. If you do have sub-project files, it's going to give you one more setting that we actually document in this in the written training module. But where should it store the unique ID? You have to have one field clear for the unique ID. It's very important because it does some manipulation of the data to make sure everything comes over correctly from all your sub-project files. So you'll have to make sure it's not a code field, it's not a lookup field, it's one blank field, and it will use that to transfer the unique IDs over. So nothing else is different. Set your options, click OK, and now it's going to bring this. I've got my 3 files over in Primavera Risk, and it'll bring up my import report right away. So that's all there is to the Microsoft Project import in Primavera Risk.